Hello, friends. Welcome to the second week of this faculty development program on communication skills and personality development. In the first week, Dr. Gaurav Thakrar beautifully explained the importance of communication skills for teachers. In this week, I, Jigar Avani, will talk about writing skills for teachers. Writing, I believe, is one of the most neglected skills that we have. We often talk about enhancing speaking skills, but we rarely talk about enhancing writing skills. This skill is even more important for teachers because a teacher not only requires it for setting an example for students, but also for accomplishing various academic and administrative tasks successfully. Sir Francis Bacon, a well known British lawyer, theorist, writer, thinker, philosopher, has rightly said that reading makes a full man, conversation a ready man, and writing an exact man. So, writing is one such skill that a teacher must acquire and enhance. So, in this week, we'll discuss four topics. The first one is writing a report. We all have experienced this when there is an event at our institute, and when that event gets over, our authority asks us to submit a report, an event report particularly. So, in this session, we'll talk about how we can write an effective event report. Then, writing a memorandum or memo. A memorandum or a memo is like an in house letter which is used for communicating or conveying information within the organization. So, in that session, we'll talk about how we can write an appropriate memorandum. Then, writing minutes of meeting. We often attend meetings at our institute, and at times we are also asked to prepare minutes of meeting. So, we'll try to understand what do we exactly mean by minutes of meeting and how we can write an effective and appropriate minutes of meeting. And last but not the least, we'll talk about some common errors in writing. We tend to make some common errors in writing without even realizing that we are making errors. For example, grammatical errors or spelling errors or punctuation errors, etc. So we'll talk about these common errors and we'll try to understand how we can make our writing better. So these are the four topics that we'll talk about in this week. Let's get started with the first one, that is writing a report. In this session, we'll talk about the definition of a report. What do we mean by report? Then, points to be included in an event report. As I told you earlier, that we'll focus on event report. There are other types of reports as well. For example, research reports or analytical reports or business reports, etc. But I think event report is a kind of a report which a teacher needs to write frequently in his or her day-to-day life. We'll talk about format of an event report, followed by body of an event report, and last, useful language expressions. Now, these are the useful language expressions which you can use while writing an event report. If we talk about the definition of a report, then according to Oxford Learners Dictionaries, a report is a written or spoken account of an event, especially one that is published or broadcast. For example, event reports or media or newspaper reports. So, what you read in newspapers or what you watch on television channels, news channels, are basically reports which describe what happened in the past. A report is also a spoken or written description of something containing information that somebody needs to have. For example, annual reports or police reports. Now, these are the reports which contain information which other people also need to know or need to be aware of. Then, a report is also an official document written by a group of people who have examined a particular situation or problem. For example, health reports or research reports or analytical reports which contain information or which examine a particular situation or problem and provides solutions, gives recommendations. So these are the different types of reports, but we will focus, as I told you earlier, on event reports. Now, when we talk about event reports, these are the points that we need to keep in mind. What was the event about? Why was the event scheduled? The reason. Where did the event take place? The venue. When did the event take place? The date, the day, and in some cases, time as well. Who was there? The participants or the attendees of the event. So these are the points which we need to include in our event reports. If we talk about format of an event report, then first comes the title of the report. The title of the report includes the name of the event as well. Say, for example, if the report is on celebrating the Independence Day at your institute, then the title could be a report on the celebration of Independence Day. Then you have the name of the author, which is not always mentioned. It depends on what kind of a report you are writing. Then place and date. And last, body of report. This is a very important part of the report. Now, this body of report is further divided into 3 sections. The first one is introduction. Here, you actually introduce the event for which you are writing the report. First few lines or first paragraph talks about the event. What was the event? What was it about, etc. Then you go to the main content of the report, where you describe the event in detail, where you talk about what happened in the event, and then you conclude your report. Then comes the conclusion. So these are the 3 important parts of report, particularly event report: introduction, main content, and conclusion. Let's see some of the useful language expressions which we can use to write event reports. For example, the first expression that you can use to start your report is, you can start with the name of your institute, and then you can say XYZ Institute organized, and then the name of the event on this date. For example, XYZ Institute organized the celebration of Independence Day on 15th of August. This is how you can start. Then you can also start like this. In order to provide students with an opportunity to unleash their talent, XYZ Institute organized a cultural program on so and so date. So if you look at the first line, in order to provide students with an opportunity to unleash their talent, what you are doing here is you are actually informing the purpose of the event. So this is also one of the ways to start your report. Then you can start like this also. You can start with the name of the event, and then you can say it was organized or held to commemorate the contribution of, then the name of the person in the field of whatever the field the person belongs to. For example, every year we celebrate Engineers Day on 15th of September to commemorate the contribution of Sir Visvesvaraya. So you can start your report like this. Engineers Day, celebration of Engineers Day was organized or held to commemorate the contribution of Sir Visvesvaraya in the field of engineering. This is also one of the ways to start. Then, in most of our events, students participate or students perform something. Now, to talk about that, you can use this kind of sentence. The students enthusiastically or zealously participated. So when you want to talk about students' participation, enthusiastically or zealously are the words which you can use in your event report. Then we talk about guests or chief guest, for example. So to write about that, you can use this kind of sentence. The event was graced by, and then the name of the person. You can also say, or you can also write Mr. or Doctor. You can start with the name of the person and say Mr. or Doctor XYZ presided over the event or function as the chief guest. Please note the word presided over. It's a very effective word which you can use in your event reports when you want to talk about your chief guest. Some more useful expressions. The awards were conferred by. We often give awards to students or prizes to students. Now, to talk about that and to mention that in the report, you can use this kind of sentence. The awards were conferred by, and then the name of the guest. You can also write the students were felicitated by, and then the name of the guest. So these are the sentences you can use when you want to mention the awards or the prizes which were given to students. Then the chief guest delivered a speech or addressed the students on. When you want to talk about or when you want to mention the chief guest's speech, then you can use this kind of sentence. You can also write the speech delivered by chief guest was indeed thought-provoking, interesting, inspiring, stimulating, or intriguing. So when you want to actually appreciate or admire or praise the speech delivered by the chief guest, you can use this kind of words. Then to conclude your report, you can say it can be concluded that, or it in a nutshell, it can be understood that, or it can be summed up that the event was a grand success. So these are some useful language expressions which you can use when you write event reports. I hope you enjoyed the session and you find the things useful, and I'm sure you will also try to use these language expressions which we have discussed today. So with this, I would also like to talk about some points to remember when you write event reports. For example, reports are always objective. So there is no place for your personal opinion or suggestions or remarks. Remember, in event reports, you always talk about the event which was celebrated. So event is the most important thing that you talk about. Or your focus should be on the event, not on your personal opinions. So you cannot use personal pronouns like I, me, we, you, us, etc. You cannot say that I enjoyed the event, because it's not about you. It's actually about the event. Passive voice is preferably used in event reports. So as you must have observed or you must have seen in the language expressions that we discussed, that most of the expressions were in passive voice. the event was celebrated, the students were felicitated, the students were conferred the awards by, right? So most of these things are in passive voice, because what is important is what happened in the event, not who did that. If you want to focus on who did what, then you use active voice. But if you want to focus on what happened, then you use passive voice. So in event reports, we mostly use passive voice. Past tense is mostly used because we talk about the events which have already taken place. The language should be clear, concise, and to the point. It should not be vague or ambiguous. It should be easier for your readers to understand what you are trying to convey through that report. Keep in mind the target audience. So you should always keep in mind your target audience. This is true not only for reports, but any kind of formal or professional document you are drafting or writing. You should always keep in mind the target audience, and accordingly, you can choose your language or the level of language or the words. Then technical jargons or words should be avoided. So as I told you that you have to keep in mind your audience, and accordingly you have to choose your words. If you use a lot of technical words, it is possible that the people reading your reports may not understand what you want to convey, because they may not understand the technical jargons or technical words that you have used. So avoid technical jargons or technical words. Reports should be well organized. Only then it will make sense to your readers. If it is not well organized, then it will not make any sense, and you would end up miscommunicating the things. Be careful about common errors, grammar, syntax, spellings, punctuations, etc. We'll talk about common errors in details in the last session, but just to give you an idea, when you write a report, and particularly event report, you should make sure that you don't make grammatical errors or spelling errors or punctuation errors, etc. So I hope you understood what we discussed today, and you enjoyed what we discussed, and you will also try, as I told you earlier, you will also try to apply what we have learned in today's session. Unless you apply what we have learned today, it will not be very much helpful or useful to you. So please apply these language expressions, these points that we have discussed today when you actually write event reports. With this, thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next session. Thank you.